We spend so much of our days measuring the world by the ruler held in our own hands. Consider for a moment how often you look outward, at a neighbor, a colleague, or a stranger on the street, and feel a quiet ripple of judgment. We whisper to ourselves they are doing it wrong. We think this because their timing does not match ours, because their methods do not fit the neat, orderly lines we have drawn in our own minds. We live in an era of immense precision, where every second is counted and every outcome is tracked. In this rush, we often forget a simple truth, that the view from where we stand is not the only view there is. We carry a heavy burden when we demand that the world march only to the beat of our own drum. We strain to correct, to standardize, and to fix the chaos of others, believing that our logic is the only logic. But what happens when our desire for order blinds us to the heart of another human being? What happens when we measure their struggle with a tool that was only ever meant to measure our own? It is a question of perspective, and it is a lesson that once had to be gently taught to a powerful man in a golden court, where the desire to be correct almost overshadowed the need to be kind. It begins in the presence of King Mindon, a ruler accustomed to the strict laws of the land and the precise rhythms of the court. He sat with the Thingazar Sayadaw, a monk of deep wisdom and quiet presence. The air was filled with the anticipation of Tazang, the full moon festival of lights. It is a time when the night glows warm with devotion and the people bring their offerings to the pagodas. But the king's mind was not settled on the beauty of the lights. It was fixed on a breach of protocol. He had observed the habits of his people, and he found them lacking in discipline. "My lord," the king said, his voice carrying the weight of his authority, "at the full moon feast of Tazarangmon, special offerings of alms food are made to the pagodas by the people." He paused, his brow furrowed in disapproval. "I have watched them. Some make the offerings at the proper time, at the breaking of dawn on the full moon day itself, but others make the offerings before midnight, the previous evening." The king leaned forward, his intent clear. He sought to correct this error. "I consider that the second practice is wrong," the king declared firmly, "because alms food is offered to monks only in the morning. To offer it at night goes against the rule." He looked at the Sayadaw, expecting agreement. "Therefore, I intend to issue a proclamation. I will prohibit the offering of alms food to the pagodas before dawn. The law must be followed." The king waited. He believed he was upholding the purity of the tradition. He did not yet see that he was measuring the devotion of the weary with the clock of the privileged. The Sayadaw received the king's proclamation with the stillness of a deep lake. He did not raise his voice, nor did he bow to the rigid logic of the court. Instead, he offered a perspective that softened the hard lines of the law. "Your Majesty," the Sayadaw replied gently, "we must discern the difference between the need of the body and the cry of the heart." He explained that when one offers alms food to a monk, it is a practical matter. The monk is living flesh. He must eat to sustain his practice, since a monk eats only in the morning hours. The offering must naturally arrive before noon. That is a rule bound by time and hunger. In contrast, the Sayadaw continued, when one makes an offering of alms food to a pagoda or an image of the Buddha, it is meant merely as a token of worship. The stone image does not hunger, the pagoda does not thirst. The offering is a symbol of the giver's letting go, an act of reverence. The Sayadaw then asked the king to look beyond the palace walls, to the lives of those who did not sleep on silk. "Your Majesty must realize that people have their own reasons and own difficulties, which outsiders may not know." He painted a picture of the common man, perhaps a laborer or a farmer, who carries burdens the king never feels. A man who makes his offering in the dark of midnight might do so because the morning sun brings the demand of hard labor. Even on a holy full moon day, his work may not wait. If he cannot come to the pagoda at dawn, is his devotion less valid? "As long as he makes the offering with real devotion," the wise monk said, "it does not matter whether it is done at dawn or the previous midnight." To illustrate that we cannot judge another's measure by our own ruler, the Sayadaw spoke a final phrase to the king, as the mouse said to the elephant to each his own foot. To explain this riddle, the Sayadaw led the king's mind away from the throne room and into the dappled light of the forest. He spun a tale of two creatures, vastly different in size, who met one afternoon beneath the trees. An elephant and a mouse crossed paths in the wild. They paused as travelers do, to narrate the adventures that had befallen them that day. The elephant spoke first, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. He carried himself with the heavy pride of his station. "I am the king of the forest," the elephant declared, "and ordinarily I never run away from the enemy. But even a king has moments of caution." The elephant confessed that earlier that day he had encountered a rogue elephant, wild and unpredictable. Wishing to avoid a senseless battle, he had turned his massive frame around and run for the cover of the woods. But the trees were not high enough, the elephant lamented. In his haste to escape, he had charged through branches that were too low for his great height. The wood had scraped against his skin, tearing it open. "A branch made a deep gash on my back," the elephant said, inviting the tiny mouse to witness his injury. "If you will look, you will see that it is fully 2 feet long." He stood there, a mountain of a beast, displaying a wound that matched his magnitude, waiting for the mouse to understand the scale of his misfortune. The mouse looked up at the towering elephant and the angry red mark upon his thick skin. He spoke with the squeaky reverence due to a king of the forest. "Doubtless it is a painful wound," the mouse acknowledged, "but my friend, consider the truth of your peril. You were never in true danger of your life." The mouse reasoned that the rogue elephant, though fierce, could not have easily killed such a mighty creature as himself. Furthermore, the tree branch, while sharp enough to cut the skin, could never have pierced deep enough to reach the elephant's massive heart. The danger was real, but the catastrophe was distant. "With me, it was different," the mouse said, his whiskers trembling slightly at the memory. "Only an hour ago I was chased by a wild cat." To a mouse, a cat is not merely a rival, it is a monster of shadow and speed. The mouse described the terror of the chase, the hot breath of the predator, and the moment he was nearly caught. "He gave a jab with his claws," the mouse said, twisting his small body to show his side, "and nearly ripped open my flank. If you will look, you will see a gash at least 2 feet long." He stood there, a creature no larger than a fallen leaf, claiming a wound the size of a log. He waited for the elephant to understand the magnitude of his survival. The elephant looked down at his tiny friend. A slow smile spread across his trunk and tusks. Not a smile of mockery, but of genuine puzzlement. "My friend," the elephant said softly, "I am not saying that you are a liar, but I may point out a simple fact of nature." He gestured to the mouse's diminutive form. "Your whole body, from the tip of your nose to the end of your tail, is not even 1 foot in length. Then, how can you say that your wound is 2 feet long?" It was a logical question. By the elephant's standard, by the ruler he used to measure the world, the math did not hold. The mouse looked up, his eyes bright with the wisdom of the small. "Great animal," the mouse replied, "to each his own foot." The mouse explained the simple truth that had eluded the giant. "You measure the length of your gash by your big foot, and I measure mine by my own small foot." To the elephant, a foot was a heavy, wide stomp upon the earth. To the mouse, a foot was a tiny, delicate step. The wound felt massive to the mouse, because relative to his life, it was a mountain. The Sayadaw's lesson to the king was complete. Whether an offering is made at midnight or dawn, or whether a struggle is large or small, depends entirely on the life of the one who carries it. We often walk through this world carrying our own rulers, measuring the lives of others by the length of our own stride. We look at their timing, their grief, or their joy, and we say that is too short, or that is too long, or that is wrong. But we do not walk in their shoes. We do not stand on their feet. If this story helped you set down your ruler even for a moment and look at others with a softer gaze, let this be a place you return to. If you wish to sit with us again, feel free to subscribe to this space. Share this quiet moment with a friend who might need it, or leave a thought in the silence below. Peace be with you.